Hello, this is Leslie Wilcox. I'm going to talk through the smart actions of leading companies when it comes to robotic process automation. This is divided into 6 videos, and you'll see why, because we've identified from our research 30 action principles. If you look at this slide, you can see we analyze them into 8 pockets. And the first of these pockets that I'm going to talk through in this first video is strategy, probably the most important, the starting point, and if you don't get it right, there's an awful lot of time you spend trying to get it right, catching up. So why is strategy so important? Well, the first reason is because a lot of people don't see RPA as strategic. They see it as a piece of back office software that cuts costs and possibly headcount. However, everything that we have seen shows that organizations that don't treat RPA strategically miss an awful lot of business value. And one should not just see it as a piece of software, one should see how it taps into the long-term business goals of the organization. Some people under-resource robotic process automation. That's not strategic. Some people place it in a remote department somewhere and don't really scale it in any way. That's not particularly strategic. Some people don't get the senior executives involved right from the start. And some people don't see it as important enough to get a governance structure in place to treat it as strategic. And a lot of people don't really see yet how it connects up with other types of automation tools and indeed the digital transformation most organizations are trying to achieve. All these are about not behaving strategically. So what do organizations have to do in order to behave strategically? Well, the next slide that you'll see suggests that the main lessons we have learned from the case studies we've looked at are the following. The first one is that it really does have to be adopted by the senior executives, the C-suite. Their behaviors have to demonstrate positive reinforcement that automation is necessary. They have to provide the resources. They have to provide the sustained support across the life cycle of automation. This connects with the last point on that slide, which is establish project sponsor, champion, and project management structure. That's how you demonstrate the C-suite is engaged. The project sponsor might even be the chief executive, as we found at Exchanging, the BPO service provider, where they might spend 2 to 5% of their time on the project, but they resource it, they protect it, they appoint the right people. Then you need a project champion, a person who's going to spend 60% of their time on the RPA project and on the automation strategy, selling it, communicating, creating the energy behind the project, having enough political clout to get things done across the organization. And then you need a project management structure, because the mistake here is to think all you have to do is implement a piece of software. And in fact, it turns out that it's a long-term, large-scale project. So a project management structure is necessary in order to deploy RPA strategically. Let's move to the second point. There really is this issue of aligning it with business objectives for the long term. A lot of people see this as a cost-cutting, headcount-saving kind of tool. It can do all that, but it actually turns out that organizations are achieving what we call the triple win. Many benefits for the business, but shareholder value, as it were. Many benefits for customers, external and internal, and also many benefits for the employees. And you should be shooting for all those benefits and aspire high rather than actually aspiring too low and underestimating what you can achieve with an RPA tool. In fact, some vendors now start calling their RPA tool an RPA platform, and that is in many ways correct, because that RPA capability is the foundation for what you're later going to do with cognitive automation and links with other digital technologies. Now, the other thing that we say here is that it should be part of a larger service automation and digital strategy. And I'm going to give you an example in a minute on another slide of how it can be used to help transform shared services, global business services. The last point I make on this particular slide is that we've discovered in 2017, early 2018, that organizations that neglect to see this as about organizational change management and human resource policies really do miss a trick here. And very often they don't exactly abandon the project, but they stall, or they're not getting the business value that they thought initially. So all those points are relevant, but I want to move to an example of RPA being strategic by looking at the next slide, because it shows the phases organizations seem to go through. Now, most organizations have been getting on board with RPA quite recently. Certainly in 2014, there were very few people doing RPA in their businesses, but around about 2017, now into 2018, there's been exponential growth. But what we've seen is that many organizations have gone through this phase process. Phase one, where they just want a quick ROI, and RPA is deployed to use that. Then they discover that it can do a lot more. There are sort of unanticipated benefits they run into. One of them that surprised us was regulatory compliance. It helps you to get there much more quickly. One company, Gazprom Energy, I think it was, used to take 3 months to comply with the regulatory requirement, and had to hire 30 temporary people to fulfill that task. They did it with automation at no extra cost, using the same tools, and it took them 6 weeks. So that's one. Another one is an enhancement of the customer experience. Customer journeys have improved as a result of automation. It might have taken you 2 days to get a SIM card from Telefonica O2. After automation, it took you 20 minutes. This sort of advantage. So many organizations moved into phase two when they neglected these types of multiple benefits and went for cost savings, headcount reduction. The wiser ones start short circuit phases 1 and 2 and start aspiring to the triple win almost immediately. Now, just to give you an example also of how you can build RPA into a larger transformation strategy, the next slide shows you what has been going on in some shared services and global business services. What has happened there is that when you look at shared services, they're all trying to improve their performances, global business services as well, and they've had 5 levers in the past to pull. One is to centralize activities, processes. One is to standardize them. Another is to optimize them. Another is to relocate to a less expensive location, typically India, Philippines, many other locations around the world, about 120 now that are offshore locations. Throw technology at it from a more traditional IT base. The 6th lever can be now automation, and a lot of organizations are leaning on that one in order to behave more strategically and get a transformation project leveraged properly. And RPA is a prime weapon in the shared services global business service space, and will continue to be over the next few years. So there's some thinking around getting the strategy right. After that, we're going to move on to the next set of action principles, which look at sourcing and tool selection.